Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Sorry that it took a few minutes for me to get the stream going. Apologies, I was wrapping something up and it took a few minutes. So I wanted to get the stream at least live. But yeah, sorry it took a second for me to actually show up. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing super good. We got some good topics to talk about today. As is usually the case, I already have several ideas for polls in mind. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good stream. I'm pretty excited for this one, as I always am. What are the big topics? What are the big discussion points that we can dive into today? Well, there is several. First of all, we got a probably the biggest news of the week report from VGC, who is a very reliable, trustworthy site, and they have reported that the next-gen Nintendo console, I'm calling it Switch 2. We have no idea what Nintendo's going to actually call it. The hope, I am sure, for many of us is that they just keep it simple with Switch 2, but we'll see what they do. But anyways, the report via VGC is that these dev kits are now in developers' hands. That's right. They're reporting that key partners, which key partners essentially means, other studios outside of Nintendo, have received dev kits for Nintendo's next console. There's a few pieces of info that we got out of this on top of that. It appears that Nintendo is targeting a second half of 2024 launch. It can be used in portable mode, just like the current Switch, which makes me think this is essentially Switch 2. I'm sure they're going to have some sort of differentiator or something on this to make it, Nintendo always likes to have a twist on their consoles. So I'm sure it's not going to literally just be a Switch 2. I'm sure they're going to introduce something else here. I don't think it's going to be some sort of crazy gimmick or anything like that, but I'm sure they're going to do something besides just up the power to make it differentiated. But it does sound like it's a true, sequel successor to the current Switch, because it is going to have a portable mode. And the dev kits, at least as of now, do not have OLED screens. That has caused a ton of controversy. It appears that, we don't know the final hardware yet, because this thing hasn't launched. It hasn't even been revealed. Maybe Nintendo surprises and they do launch it with an OLED screen. But at least as of now, in the dev kits with the report, it's not. And the statement is that, it's Nintendo basically trying to save costs. And a big part of that is probably to do with the storage involved on the console, would be my guess. Storage isn't super expensive, but obviously the specs alone are going to be beefed up from Switch 1. And the other big difference is they're going to have to include a lot more storage on this console. The current Switch ships with, I believe, only 32 gigs of internal storage. That's just flat out not going to cut it on their next platform, especially if they're planning on getting games like Call of Duty. They're going to have to go up, in my opinion, to a minimum of 256 gigs of storage. Maybe they can get away with 128, but that to me is even cutting it slim, because Call of Duty games alone are massive install sizes. If they're really wanting a lot of third-party support, I personally think they need to ship with at least 256 gigs. But, we'll see. So that's going to be one big cost increase besides just the raw specs, the amount of storage they're going to have to include compared to current Switch. Now, I wish it was shipping with an OLED screen. I'm going to hold out hope it ships with an OLED screen. But as of now, it appears that that is not the case. So we can talk about that if you guys want to. When do we think, we have a second half of 2024 target, but what does that mean? We can guess at the months if we want. We can guess at the prices, the launch lineup, whatever you guys want to discuss. We can go into that a whole bunch. A few other things to highlight off of the top. A crazy story coming out about Jedi Survivor. This is, in my opinion, a major shocker. This was much more surprising than the dev kits report, right? I think we all assumed, of course, there's going to be dev kits coming out for Nintendo's next console sometime soon. But this news story right here, I found this very surprising. So first of all, the good news, we'll say, EA reported their earnings yesterday, and they had a record fiscal year Q1. They actually had incredible results. You have to give a shout out to EA absolutely spectacular results. And part of that was driven by Jedi Survivor. Their net bookings were up 21%. Now, it wasn't only Jedi Survivor. Of course, FIFA continues to be just a massive hit for them. But they flat outright said that Jedi Survivor was a driving contributor to why they had such a record Q1. They made a few statements on it. They said they flat out said it's a commercial success. They didn't use vague words like, exceeded expectations or it's doing well. Like, there are some vague statements here, but they just flat out said it's a commercial success. That means financially, they're strictly speaking financials, they find it successful. So that's not too big of a surprise if you've been following Jedi Survivor sales. It has been selling well. So they call it a commercial success with millions of players, and they state that players are spending more time in-game than they did with Fallen Order. Okay, all good news, right? This is super cool. I make a tweet about it, because they report their earnings first, and this was part of their earnings before the actual earnings call. Then I hop on the earnings call, because I'm on all of these calls. I listen to them all. And in the middle of the earnings call, all of a sudden they drop this out of nowhere shocker, in my opinion. And they state that Respawn, as of now, right now, is in the early stages of porting this game to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And I was like, did I mishear that? I sent out the tweet, and I'm going to be honest, I was prepared to delete the tweet if it was wrong. Because I was like, I swear I literally just heard this. I'm going to send the tweet because this is a major news topic, but it seems so out of left field that I'm probably misheard something. So I'm just prepared to delete it. Well, nope, it was 100% right. And in fact, GameSpot came out with an article confirming it shortly after my tweet went out. Now, there's a whole bunch we can discuss about this. Does this make any sense at all? Is it going to sell well at all? Is it a good idea to port a game back that's struggling so much on current gen hardware and PC? Is this potentially them, making the game more scalable for a Switch 2 version? I mean, there's a ton of stuff here we can talk about, but pretty shocking news story in my opinion. Another thing that we can highlight, Remnant 2 has sold more than 1 million units in only 4 days. Fantastic result. They made a statement, Remnant 2 exceeded our expectations as both a commercial and critical hit. We're incredibly proud of the Gunfire team and everyone here at Gearbox Publishing who brought this title to life. Fantastic result for Remnant 2. This game more than doubled the concurrent players on Steam of Remnant 1. It did over 100,000 concurrent players on Steam, and you guys know I like to always highlight any game doing over 100,000 concurrent on Steam is just great, right? Anytime you're seeing a game hit over 100,000, I mean, maybe there's a few outliers that you expect to do more than that, a new Call of Duty launch or something like that. There's a few outliers, the biggest of the biggest games whenever they launch that you're just going in expecting over 100,000. But for 90% of the games, 95% of the games that are releasing on Steam, anytime you do over 100,000 concurrent, that is just fantastic. That's a great result for that platform. And not a shocker to see the game sold so well. 1 million units in only 4 days. Super, super good result there for Remnant 2. And then the last thing I'm going to highlight before we dive into your guys' comments and questions is that the Circana, who is formerly known as NPD, I know a lot of people are still struggling with that transition because I get asked about it every time I post it. They're like, who is Circana? And I always have to be like, guys, this is NPD. They just rebranded. The results came out, and for hardware, PlayStation 5 is absolutely soaring. Incredible results for PlayStation 5. #1 selling platform for the month. I believe the statement from Matt was that it is the biggest June for PlayStation since 2008, if I'm remembering right, or maybe that was for the whole industry. Maybe I can't remember. I should have written this part down, but anyways, it was a huge number. Maybe it was like 2012. Maybe it was 2008 for hardware in general and 2012 for PlayStation 5. I can't remember. Something like that. Either way, huge June for PlayStation 5 hardware. Switch comes in at #2. It did decline year over year. Xbox Series comes in at #3, which also declined year over year. Xbox has been declining hard really pretty much for a while, which again to me is pretty concerning, to be honest, the state that Xbox hardware's in. But we can talk about all of that. I'm sure there's going to be some questions about Xbox hardware, so I won't go too in depth right off the top, but I will tell you, I just flat out am concerned with the state of their hardware sales. And now let's dive into software, because there's some really fantastic results in software. Diablo 4 absolutely annihilates by debuting at number 1. And by the way, guys, a lot of people don't realize this. They're like, of course it was number 1. Look at how big the game is on PC. PC is not included in these numbers. Physical PC is, but you guys know physical PC is almost nothing now. Digital sales on PC of Diablo 4 are not included in this chart. This is just the console sales plus physical PC. And of course, by far, the biggest platform for Diablo 4 is going to be digital PC. So the fact it debuts at number 1, obviously it couldn't go any higher than number 1 because it's the number 1 placement. But whatever those actual Circana sales are, it is significantly above whatever that number is. So as we know, massive launch for Diablo 4, like absolutely spectacular numbers for Diablo 4. Number 2 is Final Fantasy 16. There's a whole bunch of drama and debate around Final Fantasy 16 sales. I'm sure we're going to go into it here. So I'll just wait to give a ton of thoughts on Final Fantasy 16, though my thoughts are basically the same as they were before. Launch sales to me looked good for Final Fantasy 16. The question is, does it have any legs, right? I think that 3 million number in just a few days that they had, good result. The question is, did it have any legs after the first few days? And that is up for debate. Street Fighter 6 to me is the actually most impressive thing in this chart. Even though Diablo 4, massive hit, crazy numbers. I think we all expected Diablo 4 to be utterly massive. I've been saying for a long time this was going to be by far one of the biggest games of the year. Final Fantasy 16, we all expect it's a new Final Fantasy game. It's going to sell, some pretty big numbers. But Street Fighter 6 coming in at number 3, and launch sales are more than double of Street Fighter 5. Fantastic result. Capcom's got to be very, very happy with how Street Fighter 6 is doing, I would imagine, because Street Fighter 6 is also a game I expect to have tremendously good legs because the quality of it is spectacular. They're not going to release Street Fighter 7 for many years. There's going to be tons of new fighters added to Street Fighter 6. Of course, they'll do different versions with pack-in characters that they add later on. Street Fighter 6, just spectacular result. Great result for Street Fighter 6. Number 4 is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Again, fantastic. No surprise there, and that doesn't include digital sales. Number 5, Hogwarts Legacy, still legging like a beast. Number 6, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Number 7, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, also showing good legs, staying in that top 10. Number 8, MLB The Show 23. And here's another shocker, right? I said Street Fighter 6 to me was the thing I was most, surprised and happy to see. Here's the number 2 biggest surprise and most impressive thing to see. Listen to this. Number 9, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Number 10, Marvel's Spider-Man. Crazy. These games still legging, still charting, 2 of them both in the top 10 for the month. Absolutely incredible result there for the PlayStation exclusive Spider-Man games. Number 11, FIFA 23. Number 12, Mario Kart 8. Number 13, Dead Island 2. Number 14, Minecraft. Number 15, F1 23. Number 16, Elden Ring. Number 17, Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life. Number 18, God of War Ragnarok. Number 19, Resident Evil 4, and number 20, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Let me also really quick just go over the top-selling games of the year to date so far, and then we're going to get to your guys' comments and questions. So the best-selling games of 2023 so far to date. Number 1, Hogwarts Legacy, same rank as it was last month. Hogwarts Legacy, as we know, has just been a sales juggernaut. Number 2, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Again, another sales juggernaut, and there's no digital included in that. So for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to be number 2 compared to so many other games that have digital included in this chart, spectacular. Number 3, Diablo 4. Instantly, guys, after just 1 month and without the PC digital tracking, Diablo 4 comes in as the number 3 best-selling game year-to-date already. That shows you how colossal the launch sales for Diablo 4 were. The fact it's missing its biggest platform and is instantly top 3 for the year, crazy. This game's launch was just, staggering. Number 4, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, because we're not at the beginning of the year, right? We're all the way in June now. We're halfway through. It's one thing to debut in the top 3 best-selling games of the year whenever we're in March, right? It's only been 3 months for games to build up sales. To instantly hit top 3 without your biggest platform 6 months into the year, wow, that launch was big. Number 4, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Number 5, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I mentioned Star Wars Jedi Survivor clearly selling well, and it is. It's in the top 5 best-selling games of the year right now. Number 6, Resident Evil 4. Number 7, MLB The Show 23. Number 8, Dead Island 2. Number 9, Final Fantasy 16 debuts at number 9. Street Fighter 6 debuts at number 10. Number 11, FIFA 23. Number 12, Dead Space. Number 13, Madden 23. Number 14, Elden Ring. Number 15, Mario Kart 8. Number 16, The Last of Us Part 1. Number 17, Minecraft. Number 18, God of War Ragnarok. Number 19, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And number 20, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. All right, guys, that is all of the stuff I'm going to highlight off of the top, which means it's time to get into your guys' comments and questions. Now, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. We just talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be a few ways for you to do that. First of all, of course, there's just the free method. You type a question or comment, whatever you want. I get to as many of the free ones as I possibly can per stream. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question or comment, there's going to be 2 ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the super chat method. You type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me immediately, and I get to super chats as soon as they drop. The other way to guarantee that you're going to get to at least 1 question or comment, possibly more, answered in this stream is going to be by being a channel member. Channel memberships are $4.99 for a month, and basically the thing that I guarantee every channel member is that every stream for the month, you get at least 1 comment or question highlighted in the stream. I'll oftentimes get to more than 1 per member question or comment, but depending on how the chat goes, I guarantee that you're at least going to get 1 and possibly more, because obviously that's the perk of being a channel membership. You are going to get priority. All right, guys, thank you so much. Let's get rocking. Let's get rolling. This stream's been going for quite a little bit now, and we haven't got into your comments or questions yet, so let's go. First of all, I do want to give a shout out to Glitch. Glitch has become a Benji-Sales channel member. Thank you so much, Glitch. I super appreciate you joining that membership. Shout out to all of the channel members, and Glitch, that means you're guaranteed at least 1 comment or question for this stream. So drop it into chat. You're going to definitely get at least 1 highlighted. All right. Let's hit the super chats, and then I'm going to hit the channel member questions, because we have a couple super chats and some channel members. Benji here dropping his first super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. I really appreciate that, man. Dropping a 5. Hi, Benji. Your thoughts on Final Fantasy XIV coming to Xbox? Could this indicate more major Final Fantasy titles on the horizon? Are you expecting Final Fantasy VII Remake or even Final Fantasy 16? Okay, couple thoughts. First of all, I think it's great news that Final Fantasy XIV is coming to Xbox. As you guys know, on the third-party games, I want them to mostly be available as available as possible on as many platforms for third-party games, right? Obviously, I have a different feeling about first-party content, but third-party, I think that should be as widely available as possible. The only exception I have towards that, a third-party game being an exclusive, is whenever the game is like literally funded by the platform holder. A prime case of this is Bayonetta on Switch, right? If you remember, Platinum flat out said, like, the whole reason Bayonetta 2 was able to happen was basically Nintendo funded the development of that game. Otherwise, they probably weren't going to be able to make Bayonetta 2. So exceptions like that, where it's like, hey, we're literally funding your game. If this game would not happen without us behind you, cases like that, whatever, go exclusive. That totally makes sense. But we all know, like, Final Fantasy games are going to be made whether they're exclusive or not. Like, Square Enix isn't just going to stop making Final Fantasy games. It's essentially the biggest IP that they have control of, right? It's going to be Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, and Dragon Quest. Like, those are the biggest games that they make, for the most part. There's going to be exceptions to that. Nier has become a very impressive franchise for them. But historically, those are their big 3 that they make. Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, and Kingdom Hearts. So they're not going to just stop making Final Fantasy games. So I want these games to be on Xbox. I want them to be on PlayStation. I want them to be on PC. I want them to be everywhere. So I think it's great news. I have a couple thoughts. First of all, I really hope that Xbox fans actually get behind this game. You should never feel obligated to play a game that you don't like or are not interested in. But I've said this a bunch of times. Xbox fans, and I'm not singling anyone out, I'm just saying Xbox fans can't go online and constantly complain about a lack of Japanese support if they themselves are not going to support the games. So my hope is that Final Fantasy XIV performs super well on Xbox. Hopefully a bunch of people get into it. Hopefully a bunch of people like it. Hopefully it takes off on the platform, because that's going to encourage Square Enix to bring more games to the platform. Am I expecting Final Fantasy VII Remake or 16 to come to Xbox? I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's probably very likely Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming to Xbox. Now, when? I don't know. We know that at one point there was an exclusive contract on Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then it did have like a cutoff time. Can't remember the exact year, but then it sounds like that got extended whenever they made Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Sounds like whatever the deal was there, Sony extended that exclusivity deal. So the question to me now is, when is that extension over with? I'm not sure if we actually have that info. My hunch is that once 7 Remake can go to Xbox, the first one, I suspect it's going to, because I suspect Phil Spencer is going to pay Square Enix to make that happen. I think they're going to throw the bag at Square Enix to get that game to come to Xbox. 16, could it come to Xbox? Sure. It's just a matter of, again, when is that contract with Sony over with? I doubt that Square Enix would be foolish enough to sign an forever exclusive on 16. I'm sure there is some sort of end date that Sony could extend if they want to. So I suspect 16 could potentially come to Xbox, but that's going to be years away, right? I would not expect 16 on Xbox anytime soon. That game isn't even on PC yet. 7 Remake, I think, is extremely likely it's coming. I just don't know when. It depends on whenever that Intergrade extension ends. So probably on 7 Remake. 16 also probably at some point, but who knows when that will be. But overall, I think it's great news. Great news. Highlander001 dropping a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. With Starfield a month away, there is no or very little marketing for the game. This is a little concerning to me. Could this mean a delay? No, I do not expect Starfield to get delayed at all. I have a feeling that the big marketing push, like the big marketing blitz, is probably about to start. I'm not as concerned with this as a lot of people are. Those Starfield animated shorts that they released are doing big numbers on Xbox. Like very well. They're not doing Spider-Man numbers, but almost nothing does Spider-Man numbers. So, they're doing millions of views on the Xbox, and that's not even the game itself. Let me find it. These are just vague animated videos. Let me find it. I got to go to Xbox's YouTube. Oh, maybe it wasn't Xbox. Maybe it was the actual Starfield account. One of these. Let me find them. They're getting millions of views. I just got to find where they're uploaded. Oh, okay, it's the Bethesda. There we go. There we go. Yeah, I mean, the one, Starfield Settled Systems, 3.7 million views. Starfield The Settled Systems Super Et, 2.8 million views. Starfield The Settled Systems, another one, 1.2 million views. And these are just super vague animated shorts. I wouldn't expect those to get the same kind of views as an actual gameplay trailer is going to get. I'm not that worried about Starfield. People are kind of panicking over the state of Starfield because there's not this biggest marketing push you've ever seen. I still stand by, I don't think it's really that big of a deal because they just had a massive presentation on this game 1 month ago. So it wasn't like we haven't seen this game in 6 months. We literally just saw 40 minutes of this game a month ago. So I suspect now that we're in August and we're leading up into that final month of marketing, I think you're going to get a big push now. So I think you're going to start to get launch trailers. You're going to start to get a lot of that stuff right now. I personally, Highlander, have found it a little weird how some of the Xbox fan base is. I'm not saying you're panicking. I'm seeing some people getting all panicky. I don't think it's that weird we haven't had 15 more trailers after they just did a 40-minute showcase a month ago. you don't want to necessarily burn people out with just here's a new trailer every 7 days. That's not a good strategy. So I think now that we're in August, you're going to start to see a big push. Now, if that doesn't happen, if we get down to 2 weeks before launch and there's hardly anything shown on this game besides that direct, then I would be a little more concerned. But the fact we didn't really get a huge marketing push in July to me is zero surprise, considering in June we had that direct. So to me, this is not a big deal. Jacob Novick with a super chat. Thank you so much, Jacob. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion hype, Final Fantasy 14 Day 1 buy. Yeah, I'm guessing, Jacob, that you're referring to the rumors that there is an Oblivion remake coming. I don't know if I believe it. I think that remaking Oblivion is a very smart choice. I would totally advise them, like if just Microsoft was like toying with the idea, should we remake Oblivion? I'd be like, heck yeah, you're going to sell so many freaking copies of that game and get great engagement through Game Pass on it. Like, I'm all for it. The thing that makes me question the validity of if this is real is that the report is that it's being built on Unreal Engine. That just seems weird to me that you would take an Elder Scrolls game and put it on Unreal. It doesn't really line up with anything that we've ever seen from Bethesda, where they just use, I'm talking about like Bethesda Game Studios. I'm not talking about Bethesda the publisher. I'm talking about Bethesda the studio. They use their own proprietary engine. Seems weird to me that they would be building it on Unreal Engine 5. I'm not opposed to it. I think Unreal Engine 5 is a great looking engine. I'm just going to be honest, Jacob. I'm not 100% bought into that this is a real leak strictly because that piece of info. I'm like, I don't know about this. I hope it's true. I'm going to say that right now. I hope it's true because I would love to play an Oblivion remake. I just don't know about that. That Unreal Engine 5 thing is the thing that makes me skeptical hippo-eyes, but maybe it's real. And thank you for that super chat. Ladays here has re-upped their channel member. They're now a channel member for 2 months. Thank you so much, Ladays. I super appreciate for re-upping your membership. And Ladays says, hey, Benji, I'm interested in the contrasting marketing strategy between Mortal Kombat 1 having weekly trailers and Starfield having none. Which is more effective? I would say it does make more sense for Mortal Kombat than Starfield, because Mortal Kombat's a fighting game and the new trailers they're constantly doing are introducing the roster, which is a tried and true marketing tactic for all fighting games. Like you saw Street Fighter do that. I'm not saying it was every week, but it was like super regular trailers to introduce, each character to the roster. You saw Smash do this infamously for many years. To me, something like, Mortal Kombat doing these, because if you look at the trailers, they're not usually just cinematic trailer. It's to introduce, hey, here's this fighter. And then you wait a week or 2 or 3 or whatever. Here's this fighter. Tekken's doing the exact same thing. For fighting games specifically, this is nothing new. What Mortal Kombat's doing right now is the exact same thing Tekken's doing. It's the exact same thing Capcom did with Street Fighter. It's the exact same thing Nintendo did with Smash Bros. And all the DLC characters and the regular characters leading into launch. This is just how you market fighting games. It's a tried and true method. For something like Starfield, I don't know that you would need a trailer every single week, because I'm going to be honest, I don't know how much engagement you would get. If you guys remember, I made a statement leading into 16's launch how I thought they were over-marketing the game. And I talked about on this stream about how you saw the engagement numbers on those trailers. Each trailer, the views just kept going down, like on 16. It literally kept happening. There was one trailer very close to launch that I remember I checked, and after like a day or 2 of building up views, it was still only at 100,000 views. And this was like, I think, a trailer that came out like 7 days before launch or something. People just started becoming so overexposed to that game. They knew what it was. Like, we knew what Final Fantasy 16 was. It's a story-based game. I think people started being like, I know what this is. I don't need to watch more trailers. I just want to play the game. It's right around the corner, and I've seen it like 10 times already, because there was a lot of 16 trailers. I feel like that would be the risk with Starfield as well. You've already had 40 minutes of footage of Starfield. If you were also getting 3 or 4 more trailers packed into a short amount of time, what is the actual consistent viewership you're going to keep getting on those trailers? I suspect they would start to decline over time. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think people are kind of over analyzing the marketing strategy of Starfield. I'm not that concerned with it at all. Again, all of this tune changes if we go through most of August and they hardly show this game. Then completely you will hear me say something different, because now we haven't had anything really since that direct, and now we are basically within launch month since it's the very beginning of September, right? So now should be the time, theoretically, that you do get a couple awesome trailers, a launch trailer and probably something else. So again, this all changes if you, what I'm saying right now, all changes if you don't see anything essentially until launch. Then I would be more like, really? That's strange. But the fact we didn't get anything really in July, it should be no surprise. Split End 89 with a 2 super chat. So that Spidey 2 PS5 release, not intentional. Oh, it absolutely is. I was actually talking about this in my private Discord, which, by the way, Split End's in. And I just have a few friends in there. And we were talking about this. You know, I think that Spider-Man 2 PS5 launching literally at the very beginning of September is 100% intentional by Sony to counter Starfield. So you saw a bunch of people being like, that's a bit of a weird strategy, launching, you know, the hardware bundle essentially more than a month before the game comes out, because isn't the bundle September 1st and then October, I can't remember the exact dates, in October for Spider-Man. To launch it more than a month beforehand looks weird, and I literally think it's to counter Starfield. You know, Jim Ryan, as we know, whether you like Jim Ryan or not, he's a highly competitive person. You can just tell it through all of his statements and through all of his actions. He is very competitive. And this doesn't have anything to do with console wars. This has to do with business. And I think if Jim Ryan sees an opportunity that he thinks that they could still have PlayStation 5 be the #1 selling platform in September and get those headlines despite the launch of Starfield, he's going to absolutely take that if he can get it. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think it's going to. Even though I do think Starfield is going to definitely push hardware sales for Xbox, I actually think that in September, PlayStation 5 will be the #1 selling platform, and I think it's really because of these Spidey bundles. And I think that was 100% intentional. I think Jim Ryan doesn't want to give Xbox the ammunition. He doesn't want to give them the momentum. He doesn't want to give them the potential to be like, look, we're the #1 selling hardware worldwide. We're coming back. We're resurging. I think Jim Ryan thinks if I can stop those headlines and I can put this bundle out earlier, I'm going to do it. So I 100% think that was intentional. 100%. And thanks for that super chat, buddy. You're the man. Follow SplitEnd89 on Twitter. Check out his work at Gaming Trend. Great friend of mine. All right, let's get into your channel member questions and comments. Joseki channel member here saying, yo, Benji, what is up? Circana is out and Xbox is still seemingly declining year over year in the US. Pressure on Starfield is immense. Abso-freaking-lutely. You know, we can talk all we want about how Xbox is evolving its business beyond console, and that's 100% true, right? There's no doubt about it. The fact they launched games day one on PC should tell you that. The fact that they have, you know, a cloud streaming service, whether it's successful or not, should tell you that. The fact that they have a subscription model, like there's just no doubt that Microsoft is trying to evolve its business to being something more than just centered on console. That being said, console sales are still very important, despite what anyone tells you, whether that's someone at Microsoft who tells you that it's not, or whether that is an Xbox fan or a Xbox fan or PlayStation fan or any fan. If someone tells you that hardware sales are no longer important for Xbox, it is a lie. It is either a lie or it is being misinformed. They are still very important because for many, many people, that's how they're going to engage in Game Pass. That's how they're going to engage in buying games. All of these other, branching out, those are also important. That's not me saying PC is not important. PC is very important to Xbox. It's not me saying that building Game Pass subscribers isn't important. It's very important. But the idea that sometimes, I don't think it's many people, but sometimes gets spread around that, oh, it doesn't matter if Xbox is, having struggling hardware sales. Who cares because of, this, and this, and this, and this. It's, again, just not accurate because for many, many people, all these growth vectors that Microsoft's talking about, these Game Pass subscribers, these millions of players, these eventually our cloud taking off, a lot of people are engaging through that through their console. So they still do need to sell consoles. Like, that's just a myth that they need to stop selling consoles. The only way they need to stop selling consoles is if they go completely third party. And at that point, yeah, that is a whole different discussion. But if you're going to be a platform holder and building a closed ecosystem, which at the end of the day still essentially is for a lot of their stuff, yes, you can get it on Steam, but for a lot of their stuff, it's still about Game Pass, right? And Game Pass is still technically a closed ecosystem, right? It's still only on Xbox and PC. You don't have Game Pass on PlayStation. You don't have Game Pass on Nintendo. You don't have Game Pass. You see what I'm saying? So as long as they're going to still be trying to build up all of this stuff, they need to be selling consoles. And the reality is the current state of Xbox hardware sales is not good. That's just the reality. It's just not good. Their hardware sales at the moment are not strong. I personally have a suspicion, and I talked about this, I think, on the last stream, that there's a potential we see a bit of an inverse of what you normally expect out of a platform, and that is that the later parts of Xbox Series life might actually be better than some of its earlier or mid-term performance, which sounds super weird, but also Xbox Series has been in a super weird position that we don't normally see hardware sales in that they've barely had a first-party showing this entire generation so far. Like, barely. Essentially, since 2021, it's been mostly dead or very small games, right? We have not had a consistent performance of new releases that are high-quality AAA content from their first party. So I'm not saying this is a lock, but I think there's actually a potential that hardware, even though it's been struggling for quite a while now for Xbox, to be honest with you, we may see this turn around a lot. If Starfield's super, super good and people love it, if Fable's super, super good and people love it, if Hellblade's super good, like as these consistent releases games come out, I think there's actually a very real chance that Xbox's performance does a bit of an inverse from what you expect. Usually you expect a pretty big peak, somewhere in the first 3 or 4 years, and then the slow decline out of that. We may see a bit of a weird scenario where Xbox Series has a super early high peak, because it did. It was, at one point the fastest selling Xbox consoles of all time. Then we saw this big dip, and again, like we discuss all the time, easy explanation, hardly any first party software. I mean, this all lines up. It's not like a mystery. All you have to look at is when hardware sales declined and also when first-party software output declined, and they line up. So that should tell you everything you need to know. So we we could see that weird scenario where there's a super early spike on Xbox, then this weird dip down, and then maybe another big second spike as games like actually start to hit for this system. Potentially could happen. Not a lock, but potentially could happen. And yes, there is a lot of pressure on Starfield. Benji, channel member question. What's up, Benji? Any thoughts on what would be the best timing for a Switch 2 for the launch in 2024? So I'm going to actually have a bit of a take that maybe some people have. I actually think it's a good idea for Nintendo to launch outside of holiday for Switch 2. I think that a late summer / super early fall release might be perfect, like in August or September. Really, I think a September release would be great. And part of that is to kind of like alleviate pressure off of the holiday quarter in a way, if you're just trying to stuff everything into just holiday. And I understand what the counter argument is going to be here to this as well. But if you go as early as something like a late August, a September release, you can get that huge first push of Switch 2 hardware out of the gate. As we all know, Switch 2 is just going to sell out regardless. Like, it's going to happen unless Nintendo somehow botches this thing, which would be a surprise. You can never rule that out. We did see the Wii to Wii U transition happen, and that was a complete botch. I don't think Nintendo will repeat that. I think Switch 2 is going to be a very well-positioned system. So I'm expecting this thing to, like, massively sell out. If you can go in, like, late August or September, you can get that big, huge initial rush of the hardcores coming out, buying your platform, selling out, going crazy. And you can also then have a few months to try and really build up again for that holiday, big holiday quarter, right? You're going to have to, of course, still ship some to stores in that meantime in between. You can't have just 0 Switch 2s on console or on shelves for months and months on end. But you could get that huge rush early, pare it back a little bit for just like, the rest of September or October or whenever this time frame is, and then do another massive push right as you lead into Black Friday and December. That's how I think would be a very, very good strategy. Now, the counter argument to that would be just bulk it all up and stuff it all out there in November and December and just have even more available for strictly launch. But I like the idea of an August, September release. But we'll see. It's Nintendo. You never know what they're going to do. The traditional method is to launch in November for new platforms. Doesn't always happen, but we've seen it many, many, many times. So I would say the safest bet is they're going to launch this thing in November. But I kind of like the August, September idea. And that is going to actually lead us into the first poll. And so the first poll I'm going to ask you guys is, what will be launch price of Switch 2? Because I'm curious what you guys think about this. So the lowest option we're going to go is $299, right? Same price that Switch 1 launched at. $299, we'll start there. It's not going to be less than that. So the absolute floor, we'll launch it. Do they launch it at the same price as Switch 1? Next up, we'll go $350. Right, so $50 bump off of what the original Switch launched at, and I believe the current price of the OLED, right? Isn't current OLED $350? Let me double check myself that I'm not crazy, but it should be $350, right? Correct. Okay. So do you think they'll launch Switch 2 at the price the OLED is, $350? Next, we're going to go $400. I'm going to be honest with you guys right now. That is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting Switch 2 to cost $400 at launch. And that is going to sound surprising to someone, or to some people. They're going to be like, it's Nintendo. They always want to price their hardware as low as possible. They use older hardware. One thing you guys have to keep in mind is inflation has radically changed the game in terms of like the cost of everything. We're in a way different financial situation now than we are whenever the original Switch launched. I personally think this thing's going to come in at $400, and you know what? I think Nintendo will have zero problems selling out at $400. So I don't even think it's an issue. I think Nintendo can get away with $400. They'll sell every console they ship this year, in 2024 anyways, and you have to factor inflation with a new platform launch. So, but maybe some of you feel it'll be less, and that's okay too. And then the final option I'll give is more than 400. So just whatever. That can be 450. It can be 500. Whatever you think. We're going to say more than 400. Okay. There we go. What will be the launch price of Switch 2? Like I said, I'm banking on $400. $399.99. Same thing. All right, so that poll is in chat. Let's get back to the member questions. J2 Blue in the Sky, channel member saying, what is up, Benji? What's up, J2 Blue in the Sky? Great to see ya. And J2 Blue in the Sky says, Super Nintendo Switch. I'm actually okay with that name. The two names I'm okay with, and again, when I say I'm okay, it's not like I have any authority. It's just, we're having a discussion here. The two names I think are like safe-ish. The number one safest is Switch 2. I would keep it simple if I was Nintendo, so we don't risk any sort of mishap like we had from the Wii to the Wii U, or even there was a bit from the DS to the 3DS. Is the 3DS a successor to the DS, or is this just yet another, like we saw the DS and the DS Lite and the DS XL? I worked in gaming retail when the 3DS came out, and just like the transition from Wii to Wii U, not as hardcore as that, because with the Wii U, it was even more confusing for consumers, because I'm telling you, I worked during the launch of that console, and I had people coming in thinking the Wii U was literally just a controller add-on for their Wii. At least with the 3DS, people that weren't sure what it was, they knew it was at least a new model of hardware. But again, we've seen Nintendo have some, sketchy transitions before. Dude, just call this thing Switch 2. There's zero confusion at that point. Everyone knows what the next number on something means, whether that's a movie, whether that's a video game, whether that's a console. If you just go from the number 1 to 2, everyone knows what it is. So I would just keep it freaking simple and call it Switch 2. But Super Nintendo Switch is fun as well, and I think that one's kind of okay. But if they come out here and call this thing, I said it on, I think it was the last chat or the chat before. If they come out and call this thing the new Nintendo Switch, I can't even express how angry I'm going to be. And not angry in terms of like, oh, the name should be cooler. I mean anger at the business and marketing strategy of naming your console that. It is such a stupid thing to do for a successor. If they come out and call it new Nintendo Switch, man, I'm going to be a salty dog. You're going to see me be a salty dog if they come out and announce that. That's the worst possible name. The absolute floor worst name they could have for this thing would be the new Nintendo Switch. Anything else is better. So, fingers crossed, Nintendo does not drop the ball. And then Joseki says, last Switch 2 info from Nate the Hate. Late 24 launch, production starting Q1 24, launching with Mario 3D informed speculation, 8-inch LCD screen plus 512 gigs of storage. I want to be careful on putting too much into what Nate the Hate's saying here. No disrespect to Nate the Hate. He's gotten a lot of things right. But anytime we're getting like rumored, especially this level of detail, you always gotta be careful, especially because Nate the Hate is not, how do I want to say this? I don't want to say he's not reliable because he is. He's reported a lot of things that are accurate. I'm saying he doesn't have a huge hardware specific track record, specifically hardware leaks. So all of this could be correct. I mean, we already know the late 24 launch from the VGC report. The other things here, Mario 3D seems just obvious. I think we all expect Mario 3D. And then, yeah, the storage, again, makes sense to me. The screen, possibly. So, I mean, this all makes sense. This all makes sense. Nothing here does not make sense to me. Captain Crunch says, crazy news. Yep, pretty interesting, pretty fascinating. We've all been waiting for a long time to get confirmation of this stuff. So we finally know Switch 2 is not far away. J2 Blue in the Sky, what are you expecting Switch to be at their financial report tomorrow? That's a great question. That is a great question. Let's check something. Let's see. Let's see something. All right, so the last update was 125.62 as of March. And that quarter they shipped. What did they ship last year in this quarter? I'm sure one of you knows off the top of your head. I don't want to take the time to Google it. Someone right off the top of your head, do you know what they shipped same quarter last year? Because I'm sure one of you probably just knows off the top of your head, and I don't want to take the time to Google it. Let me know in chat if you know. If not, I will take the time to Google it. It's just it might take me longer than one of you just knowing off the top of your head what they shipped in the same quarter last year. Not last quarter, year over year. Let's see. I'll look. I'm Googling it right now, so if one of you beats me. Is it 3.43 million, right? That's what I'm pulling up. They reported in August 22, right? Did one of you guys know off the top of your head? That's what Google's telling me, 3.43 million. I mean, I would have to like actually go back and look, but I'm assuming that this report from Go Nintendo is correct. Okay, we're going to assume that it is 3.43 million. I think that they will ship a little bit less. I know that, you know, we had all of this momentum of Zelda. And you never know. Maybe it is up year over year. But to me, I don't know. I would be surprised, but I'm not expecting a big decline or anything. So in reality, we're going to be right around. It's going to be very close to 130. It's not going to be quite there. 128, 129. I would say somewhere right in there. Somewhere right in there. Assuming that the 3.43 million that I just randomly Googled is correct, that they shipped in this same quarter last year. Assuming that is correct, 128, 129, right in there, just below 130 would be what I would expect. But maybe it's higher. Because Zelda was a massive hit, and it did push a lot of hardware. So maybe they could get over 130. It's definitely possible, actually. But right now, I'll predict just under. Let's just go 129 point something. That's what I'll predict. 129 point something. But I have no confidence in this. I'm always careful with it. You know, some people are. What I always say is there are people that are way better number crunchers than me, without question. One of them's Welfare. Huge fan of Welfare. I never claimed to be the best number cruncher guy down to the decimal point, exact shipment predictions. Like, never. I've never been the best at that, and I never will be. There's people way better at that than me. The thing I think I'm always been pretty decent in is strategy. Reading the strategy that these companies are taking, the choices they're going to make. That sort of thing is what I've always, I'm not going to say I'm the best at that either, but we all have different strengths and weaknesses. For me, the sales hat on me, the thing I think I've always been pretty good at consistently is reading the strategy choices. Highlander 001, I'm not worried as I see the $300 collector's edition sold out on the first day and seeing how well pre-sales on Steam are nuts. Yeah, in regards to Starfield, I ain't worried about it. Again, I'm not worried about it. Now, how the actual quality of the game is in the end is a different discussion. Who knows? Maybe this game super disappoints in terms of quality. But I just mean like the marketing, the buzz for the game. I have no concern over any of that right now. What? Now, the game still needs to be good in the end. And that we just frankly won't know until it's out. JCat, what's up, JCat? Great to see you, JCat. Thanks for helping mod the channel. All right, has every member had at least one question or comment highlighted? Is there any super chats that I've missed? Captain Crunch, channel member, saying, I agree. They know the demand is bonkers. Yeah, if you mean for Switch 2, absolutely. Oh, there are some super chats coming in. Casual Noob Gamer with a $1.99 super chat. Saying, should call it Switch Ultimate or Switch U for short. Casual Noob, I know you're kidding with that comment because of Switch U. If they do that, bro, I'm done. I take back what I said. The number 2 worst name that they could give this thing is New Nintendo Switch. The number 1 worst name they could give this thing is Switch U. After the Wii U fiasco, Casual Noob, I don't think they'll ever do that again. After the Wii U, I'd be shocked if they do a Switch U. You know what? I would admire Switch U more than I would admire New Nintendo Switch, just because Switch U would be the ultimate troll move. Like, it would be the ultimate troll move from Nintendo to just come out and call this thing Switch U. Like, I would be shocked at how, crazy of a choice that would be for marketing after what we saw with Wii U, but I would have to admire just the sheer audacity to do that after Wii U. That would just be hilarious. And thank you for that super chat. You made me laugh. And if you're being serious, I'm not trying to be insulting. I don't think you're being serious though, because I'm assuming it's a joke about Wii U, which is a funny one. Mr. Real Shane with a 5 here. Thank you so much, Mr. Real Shane, for that super chat. Apologies if answered. I had to step out. What do you think the big game will be for Switch 2? Zelda Tears of the Kingdom DLC. Love you, love your show. Well, love to you too, Mr. Real Shane. Love and respect everybody that gives me any sort of support. Doesn't even have to be financially like you're doing here, Mr. Real Shane, which is very kind. Anyone that clicks a tweet I send, anyone that watches a video I post, anything, I got love for all you guys. I really appreciate it. Now, what are going to be the big software games for Switch 2? Like, these are the games I'm expecting in the launch window, we'll say. And that, of course, does not mean day one. Launch window is a pretty nebulous term. There's been times that hardware manufacturers have positioned the entire first year as launch window. Some it's 6 months, some it's 8 months. Whenever we say launch window, I'll just say the first year, right? And I know that's a little bit longer, but these are the big games I'm expecting within that first 12-month window. 3D Mario is obvious, right? We got Mario Odyssey a very long time ago now. We have Mario Wonder coming up, which looks spectacular, but that's a 2D Mario game. I am 100%, especially since there's no Zelda. There's at least not a 3D Zelda. Maybe they surprise in the first year with like a 2D Zelda, top-down Zelda. Like maybe something like that happens, or maybe we see the rumored for forever HD packages of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. But I think you guys know what I mean. There's not going to be a sequel to Tears of the Kingdom within the first year of Switch 2. So the fact you're not going to have that, I think 3D Mario becomes very important for this console. So 3D Mario in the first year should just be a complete lock. If they don't, I'll be very surprised, to be honest with you. So I'm going to say 3D Mario. Also in that first year, it might sound like a surprise because I just said 3D Mario, but I do think there's a really good chance you're going to get a Mario Kart in that first year as well. And again, simply because there has not been a new Mario Kart in for freaking ever. Right? There's just been Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The Switch actually never got its own dedicated, brand new, full 3D big Mario Kart game. It just got the same one that the Wii U had, and then they added on to it with DLC courses and stuff, but it never got its own brand new Mario Kart. I would have to assume that a new Mario Kart's been in development for a while now. If not, it seems a little crazy. I get why they didn't launch one on the original Switch, because look at how much Mario Kart 8 sold. But you would, at some point, want a new Mario Kart out there. So I'm going to guess 3D Mario. This is, again, the first 12 months. I'm going to guess a Mario Kart. And I fully expect Metroid Prime 4. I think Metroid Prime 4 has been delayed to the point where it is a cross-gen game. I think they're still going to release that on the Switch. To be honest, I think maybe every one of these games I'm talking about are cross-gen. I doubt that Nintendo's going to be in a rush to drop software support for Switch 1, considering how freaking crazy that install base is. So I expect all, if not maybe one or two exceptions from Nintendo to be cross-gen. Maybe Mario Kart isn't cross-gen, which sounds weird, but considering that Mario Kart was cross-gen for 2 generations, right, Wii U and Switch, maybe they saved Mario Kart for only the new system. But I would suspect 3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4, those to be cross-gen games. And of course, there's going to be some other stuff too, but those are the big 3. Big 3 I'm expecting in the first 12 months. Nintendo's always full of surprises, but those are the big 3. 3D Mario, Mario Kart, and Prime 4. Those are the 3 that I think definitely hit in that first 12 months. Then there's all sorts of other rumors, about like a 3D Donkey Kong game and all sorts of other stuff too. So, and F-Zero remakes, and there's tons of rumors about Nintendo stuff. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. With the rumor of Switch 2 coming, do you think Phil knows something with the offer of Call of Duty on the Switch? Think other ABK games could be on Switch? This is going to, again, go back to a discussion that I had in my Discord just today. I think Phil's making a massive mistake, and this is going to get PlayStation people that watch this very upset. And whenever I say what I'm about to say, it's not from a consumer perspective. It's from a business perspective. I think Phil is making a colossal mistake if he puts anything but Call of Duty on other platforms. All of them. Any of them. Listen, at the end of the day, why did you spend $70 billion on Activision? I have to assume that a big part of that is to grow Game Pass and the ecosystem. They're going to say stuff like King for mobile, which I do believe, by the way. They have almost no mobile presence. I believe King is an important part of that. But what are Activision and Blizzard for, right? They didn't buy King, which I know is part of Activision Blizzard, but they didn't spend $70 billion to get King. They spent $70 billion to get Activision Blizzard King. Okay, what are Activision and Blizzard goal of a huge chunk of this company going to be? There's just no doubt they want to grow Game Pass subs. I mean, that's literally what the judge even basically said to them while they were in court, even while they were trying to talk about King and stuff like that. The judge even was like, come on, we know you guys want to grow Game Pass subs. So if you want to grow Game Pass subs exponentially, huge amounts to be worth spending this amount of money, if you want to bring more people into your ecosystem, I've said it a million times, I'm going to say it a million times, you're going to do that through exclusive content. I keep saying it, and I'm going to stand by it. Call of Duty specifically going into Game Pass is not going to pull 30 million new subscribers instantly joining the service because all of those PlayStation gamers now are just suddenly dropping their PlayStation versions and coming over to Game Pass. It's just not going to happen. Like, that won't happen. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be no boost in Game Pass subs from Call of Duty. You're going to get some PC players, I'm sure, that play Call of Duty on PC to come over to it. You're going to get some maybe Xbox people that still haven't subbed to Game Pass that are just casual, huge Call of Duty players that might sub to the service for that. But a huge chunk of Call of Duty players we know are on PlayStation. And a huge chunk of that demographic that is still getting the exact same game they've gotten for 20 years on PlayStation that already own a PlayStation 5 aren't going to suddenly be like, you know what? I own a PS5 already. I can just buy this game for $70. You know what? I'm actually now going to go out and buy an Xbox. I'm going to subscribe to Game Pass, which is another additional cost just to play the exact same game that I am already playing on my PlayStation. It's just not going to happen, okay? There's going to be a few. I'm not going to say no one. You're not going to pull in 30 million new subscribers from that, okay? So the way you're going to be able to get a ton of subscriber growth, however, is putting games exclusively on your ecosystem and exclusively on Game Pass, because then we're talking a whole different scenario, okay? We're talking a whole different scenario than I can just play this game on the console I already have to, wait a second, I cannot play this game on my console. I have to go get an Xbox, or I have to buy it on PC, or I have to subscribe to Game Pass on PC or console or whatever. The way that you're going to get a ton of subscriber growth from Game Pass actually isn't Call of Duty, in my opinion, because it's everywhere. We're talking about a different thing if Call of Duty's not. But Call of Duty remaining how it is on Nintendo going forward, on PlayStation as it already is, that's not going to drive giant subscriber growth. It's just not, okay? However, future exclusive Activision games, these individual games aren't as big as Call of Duty. Tony Hawk games, Crash Bandicoot games, Spyro games, Blizzard games, future Blizzard games. Overwatch is obviously clearly going to stay on PlayStation. Diablo 4 is obviously clearly going to stay on PlayStation. Future Blizzard titles going exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem and Game Pass, that's how you drive subscriber growth, not launching it everywhere and just keeping it everywhere. Now, maybe Microsoft doesn't really care about growing subscribers. Then again, we're having a different conversation. If it's just pure max out revenue, then maybe you do keep it multi-platform. I would just tell Xbox you are not going to get the subscriber growth maybe you are expecting if that is the strategy you take. If the strategy you take is we spent $70 billion on Activision Blizzard King, we're going to keep all of those games as available as they already are, as the exact same game on every single console. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to get the kind of subscriber growth that I think you're going to get, right? Because people are just going to keep buying it on PlayStation. Like, that's just the truth. They're just going to keep buying it on PlayStation because PlayStation is such a strong brand. Like, that's just how it's going to work out for you. But if part of the strategy truly is to grow Game Pass, which I think many of us believe it is, they're going to have to lock down content exclusively. That's just how it works. So, do I think there will be other Activision Blizzard King games on Switch? There could be. Would I think it's a good idea? It depends on what the strategy is. That's how I would reply to it. It depends on what the strategy is. If the strategy is that we just want Activision Blizzard King for their raw revenue, that's it. We just want it to make our gaming division look sexy to investors and have big numbers. Big numbers go brrr. If that's what you want Activision Blizzard King for, sure. If you bought this as part of, not just to get into mobile, but to accelerate Game Pass subscribers, I would not put anything but Call of Duty on Switch, and I would not put anything but Call of Duty on PlayStation. So it depends on what the strategy is. That would be my reply. Long reply, but like that's how I feel about it. Casual noob gamer with a second super chat saying, I work at marketing for Nintendo. I'll clean out my desk. And again, this whole tangent that I just said was looking at this specifically as a business. For consumers, obviously, you would want Activision Blizzard King games to be available everywhere. If Activision Blizzard King was not going to become first party, I would feel exactly how I feel about it as I said about Square Enix and Final Fantasy. I would want all of those Activision Blizzard King games available everywhere. But now that they are being purchased, now that you are being acquired, you are no longer a third-party publisher, then my tune changes depending, again, back to what we just talked about. What is the strategy? Is it raw revenue or is it Game Pass growth? Because I think those two are not mutually, I don't think that those actually go together. I think you have to choose. You have to choose if you're going to keep everything multi-platform to just max your revenue totals out, or you have to choose, no, this is part of our strategy to grow Game Pass. Because again, I don't think you can have the type of Game Pass growth that you want, keeping everything multi-platform versus making things exclusive to your ecosystem. So it's a complicated discussion, but that's what I think. And Casual Noob Gamer, you just made me laugh twice. And if you do work at marketing at Nintendo, I apologize, man, but Switch U was not it. That was not it. Wow. Super chats and members, it's going to be very hard to hit free questions today. I apologize. It's been a while since I've really struggled to hit the free questions, but it's going to be a challenge today. I'm not done streaming. I'm going to try and hit some free ones too. But the channel memberships and super chats that have they've racked up today, so it's a challenge. All right, Benji here with a 5 super chat. Benji, Valve Steam Deck, Asus ROG, Sony Project Q, and Nintendo Switch 2 have elected to go for LCD. Is OLED cost that much higher? It's definitely more expensive. Of course, it depends on like the quality of the screen and everything. If you get a dirt cheap, really bad OLED, and you price that compared to like the highest end LCD screen, you could go, maybe at that point, they're comparable. But if you want a decent OLED in these things, like the Switch's OLED is, the Switch actually has a really nice OLED screen. That's going to be more expensive than an average LCD screen. So I suspect, at the end of the day, this is part of the challenge about a portable console. Portables are super cool, but they have a whole added cost that a regular console just frankly doesn't have. And that's that you have to have a display for this thing. And displays, no matter what you go with, it's not cheap, not in terms of like the total cost of making a console, right? We're not talking a $3,000 thing. You can't sell a $3,000 console. People just aren't going to buy it. So if you're going to have a cost-effective thing, what its display is in a handheld, that's a huge chunk of your cost, man. So I think that's the whole reason why you're not seeing OLED get as much, acceptance, is you've got to shave costs somewhere. And these portables right now are choosing to cut that cost on LCD versus the OLED. So, it's going to vary. It's going to vary. At some point, the OLED costs are probably going to come down so much that it just makes sense to always go OLED. But we're still not quite there. OLED has come way down from what it used to be, even in the big, 70-inch OLEDs and stuff. It's way come down compared to where OLED technology used to cost. But we're still not at the point where OLED is truly as cost-effective as LCD. It's just still not quite there yet. And until we get to that point where an OLED has just come down so much that it's marginal at best difference in price for you to put it into a thing, you'll probably still see LCD used a lot. And Highlander with a 2 super chat. Do you see Game Pass going to other systems then? No, because I don't think the other platform holders will allow it. You know, I think there's an argument that Phil would maybe put Game Pass on rival platforms. I don't know for sure he would, but I think that there's like an actual decent chance that Phil would consider something like that. Sony ain't ever going to allow it. Like Sony will never allow Game Pass on PlayStation. They're just not going to. As long as Sony is still really focused on being a console platform holder, which they are. They've made no indication that they have, you know, Microsoft keeps talking about expanding into other areas, and Sony's not ignoring it, right? They're still putting some stuff on PC. You know, they're still doing some stuff with subscription, but Sony's made they want no confusion. They are committed to PlayStation, the console. They are very committed to PlayStation, the console. And as long as that is their belief, they'll never allow Game Pass on it, because right now Game Pass is a competitor to them, right? Listen, I talked about it. I think if you look at Phil Spencer and you look at Jim Ryan, both leaders in different ways, one, in my opinion, is far more competitive than the other. And that's not to say that Phil Spencer isn't competitive or doesn't want Xbox to do well, but I'm saying Phil has much more of a let's all get along, let's, you know, do what's best for the good of gaming in general type statements. Jim Ryan is like, you are my competitor. Like, that is how he views Xbox and Phil. I'm not saying that he doesn't like Phil. I'm not saying that he wants to, you know, undermine all of Xbox, but he's not, we're best friends. Jim Ryan is, you are my competitor and I must do what I can to beat you. Like, that is his strategy. You can clearly see it in the things that Sony does. So they're not going to allow Game Pass on PlayStation. Nintendo is actually interesting, because I don't know what Nintendo would do, because a lot of the games that are on Game Pass are games that are just flat out not on Nintendo platforms anyways. So maybe Microsoft could make it attractive by being like, hey, we can bring a lot of games over to your platform through streaming, or maybe Switch 2 is powerful enough to handle a lot of the games that are on Game Pass. I don't know. I would still lean towards Nintendo probably would not allow it, but between the two, I think Nintendo would be closer chance than Sony. I truly don't think Sony will ever allow it. I don't. Again, unless they somehow got out of the console business. But as long as they're making PlayStation consoles, they're not putting Game Pass on PlayStation. Or as long as Microsoft's making consoles. As long as one of those two things happening. As long as PlayStation's making consoles, it ain't happening. And as long as Xbox is making consoles, it ain't happening. So someone would have to basically drop the console in order to get Game Pass on PlayStation. Perfect Shogun here, channel member saying I'm late again. What up, Benji? Is Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 really coming to Game Pass? I have no idea. I didn't see that. Did that just come out? I did not see. I did not see that. So Perfect Shogun, I got no idea. I can tell you I have no insider information on that. So if that's a rumor, can't speak to it. I don't know. If there's actual statements that they are, very cool. I don't know. But great to see you, Perfect Shogun, and thanks for being a channel member. Okay, I can finally hit some free questions. Thank you to all the channel members. Thank you for all of the super chats. Everyone's got at least one channel member question answered. And yeah, all super chats are cleared. Okay, let's end this current poll and start another one. So right now I asked you guys, what will be the launch price of Switch 2? And yeah, most of you feel the same as me, but there are some other results as well. 58% of you land on 400. That's where I'm at too. That just to me makes sense with inflation plus raised specs from Switch 1 plus more storage. 400 sounds right to me, but I also think that the ones that came in second here, 32%, I think it's most likely one of these two, which is overwhelming the results between these two, right? That gets us to 90%. 32% of you say 350. I think there's an outside chance 350, yeah. I lean 400, but 350 to me doesn't seem impossible. And then we have a tie for last place. 5% of you say 299, the same price as Switch 1. That would be a tall task to me with inflation and raised specs, but you never know. And then 5% of you say more than 400. So most of us, though, are landing right in that 400 to 350 range. That sounds about right. All right, so we're going to end that poll. And Let's start a poll on Jedi Survivor, because this is a bizarre story. Is porting Jedi Survivor to last gen a good move? We'll say yes. They'll sell a lot. I don't expect that. But maybe you do, and that is totally fine. We'll say yes, because it's... I don't have much room to say what I want to say here. Yes, it is groundwork. Let's see if this fits. For Switch 2, which I'm wondering. I'm wondering if part of this is to work on making the game scalable for Switch 2, but I don't know. So we'll say that. We'll say no. It's a bad idea. Like, that's just, yeah. Okay. So here's the question. Is porting Jedi Survivor to last gen a good move? Your options. Yes, they'll sell a lot. Yes, it's groundwork for Switch 2 version. Or just no, it's a bad idea. Curious what you guys think. I'll be honest. My take is it's either straight up a bad idea, or the only way I think it's a good idea is if, like, really the goal of this is to make the game scalable for Switch 2, because they think Switch 2's power is going to be comparable to PS4 and Xbox One. If it's truly because they think this is going to sell a lot on last gen, I just think they're wrong. Because it's not, unless this is launching like in a month, which there's no indication this is launching like in a month, I would assume that this is like 6 months or more away. Bro, in 2024, how much software do you think PS4 and Xbox One is selling after yet another holiday of growth for these new consoles? I'm going to tell you, it's not a lot at all. So, if it's strictly about sales, I think this thing would have to launch like very soon. Otherwise, it's just, you're not going to sell that much, in my opinion. But if it's to make it scalable, you know, then it's different. Then it's a different story. Because I think putting these games on Switch would be smart, yeah. Switch 2, I think if you ported Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order to Switch 2, they'd sell a lot on Switch, yeah, on the next Switch. Okay, Timmer, free questions, guys. Finally, I'm sorry to all of the guys and gals that just typed free questions that it took a while to get to you. Timmer72299 saying, hope you're doing well, Benji. No questions today. Good. I'm still continuing my process of improving the mental health every day. Not every day is the best day, but I would say that I am in a much better spot than I was a month ago. Much better. So things are headed in a good way. Blazing, and great to see you, Timmer. Blazing Flame. Phil said the reason there isn't Minecraft for current gen consoles because Sony didn't give the dev kits. What's stopping them now, 3 years into the gen? Yeah, I find this a little interesting. Do you think we're getting a current gen version near future? Yeah, I suspect that was mostly Phil. I think he was telling the truth about why it wasn't available at launch. All right, like, I don't think he was lying that Sony wouldn't give them dev kits and that, you know, anything like that. I think he's totally telling the truth there. Now, do I think it makes sense there's still, all these years later, you know, no Minecraft version, like with a native PS5 version? I think that's probably a choice that they are making, that Microsoft's making to not do that. But you never know. I don't have inside information on that. Real Radic, what up, Real Radic? Hey, Benji, hope you are well. Have you seen Twisted Metal yet? It's way better than anyone expected. Do you think PlayStation Productions has been more exciting this year than PlayStation Studios proper? Oh, that's an interesting question. So I haven't watched Twisted Metal yet. My only concern with watching Twisted Metal, because I'm hearing the same thing, I'm actually hearing a ton of people really digging the show, which I think for many of us was like a pleasant surprise after, you know, let's just be honest, the show before release, marketing did not do a good job on that. Like, it looked rough. Like, even most diehard PlayStation fans were like, oof, that Twisted Metal show looks rough. And I'm hearing it's actually a great surprise. I'm hearing a lot of people enjoying it. So there's two reasons why I have not watched it yet. First of all, I'm not currently subscribed to Peacock, so I would have to subscribe to that, which isn't that big of a deal. The other reason I haven't is I've heard, and this is going to sound funny because I love gory games, I've heard the show is super gory, and I have a weird thing with gore in movies and shows. On one hand, like, sometimes it doesn't bother me. I don't know if any of you have watched the current season of The Witcher. There's some pretty gory scenes in the new season of The Witcher, especially in the new batch of episodes. The first batch of the new batch of episodes that just dropped for Witcher, there's a lot of gore in it, and it didn't bother me there at all. There's other times whenever I watch gore in movies and shows, though, that it kind of bothers me. Never does in games. So that's another reason why I'm like, if this is like an ultra gore fest, I'm not sure I would like it. So I'm not sure. I think it all depends. If there's like some shots of gore every once in a while, then I think I wouldn't bother me. If it's just like nonstop, I think it would hurt my enjoyment of it. I mean, I also watch House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, which are ultra gory. But again, it's not constant in your face. It's like, oh, here's a scene of it. If it's like that, I can handle it. If it's just nonstop, I think I would not be into the show. Ghost Tunnels saying, hi, do you think Nintendo will support the Switch with new first-party titles as cross-gen games for it plus Switch 2? Absolutely. For how many years? Could the new 3D Mario and new Donkey Kong release on OG Switch? Like I said earlier, Ghost Tunnels, I suspect the vast majority of Switch 2's launch window library is going to be cross-gen. They would be crazy to drop support instantly on Switch 1, considering that install base. That would just be absolute madness for Nintendo to do that. So they're definitely going to support Switch 1 for a while. I would say at minimum 1 year and potentially 2. I don't think they'll extend it past 2 years. I think after that, it's going to mostly be just Switch 2 games. But supporting it for at least a year is a deadlock. And for many games up to 2 years, probably. Yeah, probably. You may see a few exceptions to try and drive people to that new platform, right? You might see a few sprinkled in there that are Switch 2 only, but a lot of them are going to be cross-gen. Zinfamous, hey Benji, Xbox has stated that they have a few first-party games in 2024 not yet announced. Same goes for PlayStation. Realistically, what does 2024 look like for Xbox and PlayStation with first-party output? Great question, Zinfamous. I suspect that one of the unannounced PlayStation games for next year is probably Death Stranding 2. They never put a date or a year on Death Stranding 2, but I suspect that that's probably next year. We know Kojima works very efficiently, Kojima Productions, that studio, considering how rapidly they made the first Death Stranding game. They basically made the first Death Stranding in 3 years, which for a brand new studio, AAA studio, that's like incredible. It might have been a little longer than 3, but I'm pretty sure it was still under 4. 3 and whatever months is essentially the full, dev time on that. So we know that Kojima is super efficient. He's using an established engine in Decima. It's built on, it's the same engine that he built the last game on. I'm sure he can reuse a lot of assets from Death Stranding 1. So I suspect Death Stranding 2 is probably one of the big games targeting next year that Sony has not put a date on. That would be my guess. For Xbox, I think most of their big games for 2024 are dated. Maybe they have something small to sprinkle in there. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden shock you with Gears 6 is 2024, right? I suspect something like that's probably not going to happen because they already have Avowed announced for next year. They have Flight Sim announced for next year. They had, isn't that Clockwork game 2024? I think they said Clockwork Revolution, I think, was next year. Like multiple games already have dates. So I suspect maybe a smaller project, a Hi-Fi Rush style, a Pentiment, something like that. And then you're saying UFC 291 was insane, right? Amazing. They had back-to-back amazing pay-per-views. 290 and 291 were both bangers, man. Predictions for UFC 292 with Sterling versus O'Malley and Zhang versus Lemos. I think Aljo is... I'm not trying to be a hater on O'Malley because I really like O'Malley. He's an exciting fighter, but I kind of think Sterling's going to smash him, if I'm being honest with you. O'Malley's not a bad fighter, but Aljamain does not get near the respect he deserves. If you look at his resume, it is incredibly impressive. He still gets... I feel like people still... they are turning around on Aljo. I see a lot more respect for him now than I used to, but I still think a lot of people just still hold the whole... Peter Yan thing against him. Sterling to me just seems like a terrible matchup for O'Malley. I think there's a lot of top guys O'Malley can beat. I just think Sterling's just a straight up bad matchup. I think Sterling's going to win, and I think he's going to finish him. I think he's going to submit or ground and pound O'Malley within the first 3 rounds. I think he gets it finished in the first 3. My guess would be choke. My guess would be rear naked choke. I could see him getting O'Malley down, ground and pounding him, getting O'Malley to turn his back, and we know how deadly Aljo is on the back. He's one of the best back takers in all of MMA. That's my prediction. Sterling rear naked choke in the first 3 rounds. And then Weili Zhang versus Amanda Lemos. Lemos is a beast. Very, very powerful. But Weili is just a monster. I think Zhang finishes her by KO in the first 3 rounds as well. Yeah, I'll predict submission for Sterling in the first 3 and knockout for Weili Zhang in the first 3. Venom Harness, do you think we will get less single-player titles if live service games are successful by third party? Also, is that why Sony didn't show many single-player titles at their showcase because focus is live service? No, in fact, you even saw EA come out and say how they're like really behind. I was on that earnings call, and they were really jazzed up about single-player games. I think we've talked about this a lot. I think live service is way riskier than single-player. And by the way, guys, another shout-out to EA. They said exactly what I've been talking about. So they were getting asked about, because Apex Legends underperformed their expectations for this quarter. And they were asked about it. They were like, why do you think Apex Legends, didn't meet your expectations? And they straight up said on the conference call, they gave us several reasons. Part of it, they said, is the seasonality of live service. There's going to be times a live service game's really healthy, and then it pulls back a little bit, and then it surges again. And you know what the other thing they pointed out is? They straight up said, very competitive live service environment. What have I been telling you guys, man, forever? Live service is so risky right now because it's so competitive. Now, Apex Legends is already an established beast, but they even pointed out how competitively difficult live service is. And they said that's part, not the only, but that's part of the reason why Apex didn't do what they expected this quarter. And that's for an established game, right? So you can only imagine how difficult it is for a brand new live service game to find long-term success. We're not talking you get a huge amount of players in the door in the first week trying the game out. We're saying you get a huge amount of people playing your game for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. The barrier on that is immense. So people should still be trying it. They should be experimenting with it. They should still be making live service games. But again, you should not go all in on live service. You need to be very, very careful. Now, what EA did say in regards to your single-player statement here's, I think, the actual worry that people should have about third-party single-player games. I don't think people should be worried that third parties are going to massively pull back on making single-player. Here's where I think people should be worried. EA talked multiple times on the call how they're doubling down on established brands. And if you look, what's Ubisoft making right now? They're making Avatar. They're making, which is a huge IP. They're making Star Wars, which is a huge IP. They're making Assassin's Creed, which is a huge IP. What are they pulling back from? Immortals. The sequel to Immortals got canceled, and a big part of that apparently is to get more people working on Assassin's Creed. What's EA's big single-player games they're making right now? They just put out a Star Wars game. They're making an Iron Man game, big IP. They're making a Black Panther game, big IP. Do you see where I'm going here? EA specifically stated that they believe the risk in single-player games right now, or more traditional games, they said is those middle games and smaller games. They said that they're all in on big flagship brands, right? And so I think the worry for some people should be not that you're not going to get single-player games anymore, because we're seeing a lot of success in single-player. I think the thing you maybe should be a little concerned about is new IP. New IP, varieties of games. I think you're going to see a lot of games just focused fully on established big brands. That doesn't necessarily all mean movies like Star Wars and Avatar are, but like Assassin's Creed is, where it's a locked-in, established brand, less risk. I think that it's really going to fall on first parties. So first-party studios at PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. I think a lot of them needs to be the flag bearers for new IP and more risky ideas, because I think you're going to see third-party publishers like EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft really backing off of that. Doesn't mean they're not going to make any new IP, but I think they're going to really pull back on that because of the risk involved. So it's going to come down to first party. First party got to be the ones carrying that flag of making risky ideas, new IPs, new things like that, because you have inherently less risk as a first party than a third party. Yoda Soda, do you think all major first and third party developers and publishers will shift from traditional single player titles to live service titles? Oh, Venom Hearts and Yoda Soda just asked very, very similar things. And I think I gave you that answer. Duquesta, Benji, the 2 Spider-Man games jumped back up to the top 10 Circana report. The hype and anticipation is ramping up, LOL. Will Spider-Man 2 be in the top 5 sales for 2023 in this crowded year? Top 5? Yeah, I would think it's a lock. The top 3 are probably, in some order, be Hogwarts Legacy, Zelda, and Call of Duty. And that's not me discounting how massive Spider-Man 2 is going to be, but it doesn't come out until October. And Hogwarts Legacy was utterly massive, and it has a long time to build up its sales total. Call of Duty is Call of Duty. I mean, it's literally number 1 at basically every year. So it's going to be top 3 at worst, probably number 1, but at worst number 3. And Zelda, again, massive launch and has many more months to build up its sales than Spider-Man. Now, the one thing here is we don't exactly know what Zelda's physical to digital ratio is. Nintendo is a higher physical company than basically any publisher out there, but they are shifting more and more towards digital, and Nintendo does not provide digital to Circana. So there is, I would say, a very slim, I don't think it's likely, but there's a slim chance Spider-Man could maybe overtake Zelda in Circana strictly because it will have all of its digital included, while Zelda will have none of it included. That is something that it's like, ooh, I don't actually know. With both included, Zelda would outsell Spider-Man for this year, right? If we're talking this calendar year, there's just no question. Physical plus digital Zelda, as big as Spider-Man 2's launch is going to be, Zelda had a colossal launch plus many more months to build up sales than what Spider-Man will have. The one crazy thing is if Zelda has an extremely high digital ratio that we don't know about. And none of that's going to be included, while Spider-Man will have 100% of its digital included. So that is the one crazy thing here, maybe. But I still think in the end, Zelda edges it even with just physical because of the added time. So top 5, though, should be safe. Yeah. Top 3 might be very hard for Spider-Man, as big as it's going to be. But top 5 should be a lock. I think we had a super chat. I don't actually know how much longer I'm going to go. Probably about 10 minutes, guys. Probably about 10 more minutes of the stream. All right. Super chat coming in here from Casual Noob Gamer. Dude, Casual Noob, I think that's your 3rd. Right? Wow, that is incredibly generous, Casual Noob. That's 3 super chats. Dude, thank you so much. It's very, very kind. Casual Noob Gamer coming in with a $9.99 super chat. In business, converting a negative into a positive is a goal. So having a successful selling system with the U in the name would show the strength of the Nintendo brand now. And Wii U was an anomaly. I literally love what Casual Noob Gamer's doing here because, like, I'm almost positive that Casual Noob is just being hilarious, but there's like a small part of me that's like not positive if Casual Noob is not. So it's almost making it funnier. I'm 99.9% sure that Casual Noob is being funny here, and 100% successfully, because this is such a well thought out written post about like making sense. Converting the Wii U in the name would show the strength of the Nintendo brand now, and Wii U is an anomaly. Like, it's so well written that it's convincing me that you might be serious. But I'm going to still go with you're not. You know what? Here's the deal. Casual Noob Gamer. If Nintendo comes out and calls this thing Switch U instead of Wii U, This is not a joke. This $9.99 super chat, I will somehow send you $10. We'll have a $10 bet. You don't owe me a dime because you just gave me a $9.99 super chat. In the crazy scenario that Nintendo comes out and calls this thing Switch U, Casual Noob Gamer, I will find a way to get you $10 back to you because this is too brilliant. Thank you for the super chat, Casual Noob. This has been cracking me up. David Taylor, channel member, I don't think David Taylor got a question answered yet or comment saying, is there a native Series X version of Minecraft? Great question. I actually don't know. I haven't played Minecraft at all on my Series X or S. I played a lot of Minecraft on 360 and Xbox One, but I actually haven't even booted it on current gen. So someone else would have to answer that. Someone else probably knows. I actually just don't know because I haven't played Minecraft at all this gen yet. It's a great question. I just don't know. All right. Cookie Cutter, howdy. Don't you think it is in Nintendo's best interest to make all first-party titles Switch 2 / Rex exclusives? Like, wouldn't that be the selling point? Also, do you think it will be as powerful as PS4? Cookie Cutter, I think it would be wise of Nintendo to sprinkle in a few Switch 2 only games. Yes, I think a couple, right? Because you do want to have some reason besides just it looks a little bit better to attract people to the new platform, right? That's been one of the main complaints about PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Even though they've had very, very strong sales, you know, they have had not many current gen only games. And one thing, though, that does help them with that conversion of people moving up is that those are platforms where first party is very important, but third party is also a huge contributor. So, you know, they also have the Maddens and the GTAs and the Call of Duties and all of those things that also help propel hardware sales. Whereas Nintendo is still so first party dependent. I think that will improve on Switch 2. We've talked about this a lot. I think Switch 2 is going to get a lot better third party support than Switch 1 had because of how successful Switch 1 was. Now people, if you're not supporting Switch 2 as a third party, you just look silly because of how, you know, much this thing sold. So they will have third party to help them there, but they're really going to need first party to convert people the most heavily. I think you still need to definitely have a lot of cross-gen games just because you have such a huge install base. You absolutely want to have a lot of games because they're going to just sell way more on Switch 1 early on. Early on. We're talking about, you know, in those first 6 months or so, you're probably going to actually see the Switch 1 versions outperform the Switch 2 versions because the install base is so extreme. But I do think it would be wise to sprinkle a couple Switch 2 only games. A couple. Right? Not most of them, but I do think they should sprinkle a couple. Now, what those will be, they'll have to make a choice. Like I said, I would do Mario Kart. I would make Mario Kart Switch 2 only, simply because Mario Kart 8 was already on Wii U and it was on Switch. It was already a cross-gen game. I know it wasn't cross-gen at launch, but it was already on 2 generations of hardware. I would make Mario Kart specifically Switch 2 only. I would keep 3D Mario probably on cross-gen, Metroid Prime 4 probably on cross-gen. That would be the big attractor I would have. Mario Kart is Switch 2 only. And then just count on it to sell how Mario Kart 8 did on the Switch. You know, make that thing Switch 2 only, and you know 30, 40, 50 million sales will come over the lifetime of the Switch. 2. Cameron Swear, hey Benji, let's just say this new Switch comes out in September/November 2024. What 4 to 5 titles would you recommend? We just did that, but thanks for the question, Cameron. Casual Gamer, I hope you're well, Benji. What's your thoughts on the PlayStation shutting down Pixel Opus? Really sad. Do you think it proves that Jason's reporting that Sony's obsession with blockbusters? What did we just talk about? I said EA did. Do you think this means it is unlikely that we see first-party AA indie niche games via first-party studios from PlayStation? Do you think this means these creative smaller titles will be from third-party? Well, it's definitely not going to be from third-party. I mean, from indie studios, sure. But from EA, Take-Two, well, I can't even say Activision Blizzard because they're going to go, first party. From EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft, no. I actually think that you're going to see less and less of these creative, smaller titles from them. That doesn't mean they won't sprinkle them in occasionally, but no. I think you're going to see all of the major third-party publishers specifically do what EA exactly said they're doing, and that's double down on big brands, which also lines up with what Sony's doing, apparently, right, from the outside. Like I said, I think it's going to come down to Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo being the ones to be the flag bearers for this. So the question is if Sony's going to do it. But I think that they're like these platform holders are going to be the only ones almost in position to do it. Outside of true indie studios, that's a different story. But the mega publishers, no. It seems they're going to just double down on established brands. All right, we're going to do one more poll as we get ready to close out the stream. And I'm going to do a few questions while that poll is running because I have one more I want to ask. I asked you guys to end this poll. Is porting Jedi Survivor to last gen a good move? 46% of you say outright it's a bad idea. And that's the number one. Number two, 32% of you say yes, it is groundwork for Switch 2. So you think, hey, whatever PS4 and Xbox One sales they get is gravy, but the important thing about it is laying the groundwork of making it scalable to Switch 2. And then 22% of you say, yes, they'll sell a lot. Nothing wrong with having that opinion. I'm doubtful how much they're going to sell on PS4 and Xbox One. Again, this is me assuming that this port is 6+ months away. That's after another holiday of these install bases growing. I just don't know what's going to be left in the tank for last gen, man. But there's nothing wrong with having that opinion. All right, last poll as we get ready to close out. As we do the last few questions, I'm going to ask you guys about release month for the Switch 2. What month will Switch 2 release? Now, we already know it's the second half of the year, so we're going to start. I'll say I'm going to include August and September as one because that's basically late summer. So we'll say August/September. We'll say October. We'll say November. And we'll say December. So those are your four options. What month will Switch 2 release? August, September, late summer release, October, November, or December. All right. Last few questions. Last few, I'm just going to take a handful more. And then we're out. Guillermo Lima. Hey, Benji. Hope you're doing great, man. I'm doing well, Guillermo. I hope you are, too. Do you think Metroid Prime 4 would be big enough to be a launch title for the Switch 2 like Breath of the Wild was? So would have nowhere near the hardware moving impact like Breath of the Wild, but I actually do expect that to be a launch game. Or at least launch like month or two game. Because I think that'll be something there to attract the hardcores. They're going to have some sort of big casual game. Yeah, and whenever I say casual, of course, a lot of us like the casual Nintendo games. What I mean is the masses. They're going to have some sort of game in there to pull in the masses. It's going to be either 3D Mario or Mario Kart or something like that to pull in the mass appeal. They're going to have that. But I think having Metroid Prime 4 there as well is just an also nice cherry on top for like the hardcores. You know what I mean? You have that big more casual title, and you also have, not that people that play Metroid Prime aren't going to also love 3D Mario. I mean, there's a ton of overlap there, but it's also just a nice also bonus. Like, oh yeah, there's also Metroid Prime 4 finally. So yes, I think it's not going to be, they need something besides Prime 4. Like they couldn't launch Switch 2 with just Prime 4. Like, here's the thing. Could they? Maybe, because Switch 2 is just going to have so much built-in demand in and of itself. Sure, but to maximize how much people are going to spend, because it's not just about buying a console, it's also about buying software along with it. They need a big mass market game too, and Prime 4 is not that. That's going to be a hardcore game. Doesn't mean it can't sell, but it's not going to pull in, millions and millions and millions of software sales right at launch alongside the console. They need a mass market game too. And like I said, I suspect it's going to be Mario Kart or 3D Mario, one of those two. Arrow Roots. Hey, Benji, have you heard the recent rumors of a Red Dead Redemption remake? Yes. What do you think? Are they going to announce next week? When might they plan release for? Thanks for answering. Yes, I have seen those rumors. I do believe they're real. And like I said on the last chat, which was, by the way, I've talked on here before how I always go back and watch my stream once just to catch things I messed up on, mistakes I made, what I can do to improve. Every one of these streams, I watch it back once and be like, oh, yeah, that wasn't good. I could phrase that better in the future, blah, 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 blah. But I was watching back last week's stream and I noticed that I kept saying, like, oh, is Red Dead 2 available on Steam? No, it's not, right? But what I meant in my head was Red Dead Redemption 1 because we were talking about Red Dead 1 remake, but I kept saying Red Dead Redemption 2. So there was one mistake from last week. But yes, I do believe these rumors are true. And as I said last week, I think the main reason that this remake probably exists is to get a very good version of Red Dead Redemption 1, not 2, 1, on Steam and PC to sell millions and millions and millions of copies. Obviously, they're going to sell millions on console as well, which is great. But I think the main reason they would put one of these remakes into production would be to get a great PC version of the game. So, yes, I think it's probably real. And makes sense. They'll sell a lot. And they'll finally get the game on Steam. Because 2 is on Steam, but 1 is not. Batman Forever. Hi, do you think if Arrowhead Helldivers 2 is successful and Ember Lab and Slow Clap's next games are successful too, PlayStation could acquire these studios? Do you think they will buy a fighting game studio? I have found it consistently surprising that Sony did not buy Ember Lab. I was very surprised by this. Ember Lab would have been incredibly cheap because they're so small to buy. And we know that Kana did well for them. They outright said it. And in fact, whenever I sent out a tweet that was talking about how back whenever, Kana came out and I was talking about how it was success, I mean, you had Shuhei Yoshida commenting on my tweet, literally saying, yes, like, this game's successful. We're happy with it. That's from Shuhei Yoshida. So, like, clearly, like, they think that the game performed well. Kana is a game I think you could actually turn into a brand. I think you could make... I really liked Kana, Bridge of Spirits. I think a sequel with, like, more production values behind it and stuff could be really, really awesome. So I was surprised they never bought Ember Lab. I'm still surprised by that. So, I don't know. Maybe there's something going on there. Arrowhead, I could see being a buy. Slow Clap, maybe. But the Ember Lab situation's weird. I don't know. I'm surprised they haven't bought Ember Lab. And will they buy a fighting game studio? I mean, there's not many out there. Capcom's not going to sell. Capcom would be out of their minds to sell. Have you seen the freaking financial results from Capcom? My God. Talk about an absolute juggernaut publisher. I've been singing Capcom's praises for years, man. They're just so well run. They are just chef's kiss. We're always talking about like drama in the industry and bad choices and underperformances and stuff like you always have that brought up. You want to talk about somebody that's just killing the game, it's Capcom, man. So they're not going to sell. NetherRealm's not going to sell because they're part of WB. Arc System Works potentially could be sold. Right? I don't think anyone owns Arc System Works. Aren't they independent? I think, unless I'm crazy. Maybe someone does own them. I don't know. But I would say if Arc System Works is independent, maybe. But that'd be like really the only one out there that would be worth it. And that you could get. Because Capcom and NetherRealm are not. What up, Chris Brandrick? Saying what's up? Hello. All right, guys. I'm going to have to call it. We've been going for a long time. Almost 2 hours. So let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Let me make sure every channel member has gotten at least one question answered. And then we're going to go. Because I've been going for almost 2 hours. I don't think Split End just got a channel member question. Let me see. But I don't know if he had one. He got a super chat. But did Split have a... Split knows he can just talk to me whenever, too. What about JCat? JCat Mods. Did JCat have a question or comment? I'm looking. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through before we go. Just making sure that we're cleared out and good to go. Jacob Novick. The new Nintendo will be Gen 9, so call it Nintendo. Nintendo. That's freaking brilliant. That's actually really funny. Nintendo. What a great play on words. Nintendo, Nintendo. That's brilliant. That is so funny. They won't do that, but that is a brilliant play on words, Jacob. Portal player, how powerful do you expect the Switch 2 will be? I have no inside information on this at all. My suspicion is like raw power level somewhere around PS4, but able to outperform probably what we saw in PS4 because of architectural improvements. That's my guess. My guess is raw processing is somewhere in that PS4, Xbox One generation if we're just talking about horsepower, but it's not just about teraflops anymore. There's all sorts of things that have come with architectural improvements over time. This thing probably is going to ship with DLSS. So the specs might not look mind-blowing on paper. Like on paper, it might just basically look like that generation of technology, but it'll probably actual performance outperform that generation because of, like I said, DLSS and architectural improvements. But that's my guess. I'd be surprised if like the raw teraflops and like, you know, all that is just like way above that gen. I would love, I mean, hey, the more powerful, the better in my book. But we know Nintendo's a bit conservative with hardware. So I don't think they're going to be coming out here trying to compete with, you know, Series X and PS5. I'd be surprised if it even has the raw processing of a Series S, you know, docked. I'm not expecting that even. But it should perform much better than PS4 and Xbox One because of the other stuff I mentioned. All right. I'm almost to the bottom of the chat. I'm just making sure we're cleared out. Oh, JCat. I asked if you think EA made last gen versions because the current gen versions didn't sell well. No, they sold great. And we know that from multiple data points. It's in the top 5 best-selling games of the year for Circana. EA flat out called it a commercial success. And on the earnings call, one of the investors asked them, like, basically, like, straight up about the game, and they said it performed right in line with what they expected. So, no, we know that it sold well. Like I said, my suspicion is that this is either just making the game scalable for Switch 2 port, so they're already going to be doing the work of downporting it anyways to get it to run on Switch 2, and maybe the power levels are comparable, like I was just saying, and they're like, you know what, if we're already downporting this thing to Switch 2, we might as well release last-gen versions as well. Or someone at EA just doesn't have... I want to be careful how to phrase this because EA is doing tremendously well as a company. But I would say that specific choice, if the specific choice is literally just to sell copies on last gen, I just think it's a bad choice. I think it's eating up resources that by the time you get it out, last gen will be like almost completely and utterly dead. Again, unless this is launching the next month or two, which there's no indication it is, probably 6+ months away, it's just not going to sell a lot, I don't think. So no, we know Jedi Survivor did well from multiple indications. Even outside of EA's comments, it's in the top 5 best-selling games of the year right now. So no, it's doing really, really good. But I get thinking that, like I get wondering that. J2 Blue in the Sky with a 5 super chat. What are the chances of Nintendo buying another studio in the future? And this is going to be the last question. The chances of Nintendo buying a studio are not 0. They've done it before, but Nintendo is also not ultra aggressive in that regard. So Bomangi had a question. He's a member. I didn't hit that. Sorry. So J2 Blue in the Sky, then Bomangi. I would say that the odds of Nintendo buying a studio at some point are high because Nintendo has done this on rare occasions. I would say, though, if they do, I don't expect Nintendo to go crazy and buy someone like crazy. You know what I mean? Like Sony and Microsoft, we debate companies like Ubisoft and CD Projekt Red and Square Enix. And, you know, we say like all these big names out there. You know, there's no way Nintendo is going to pursue anything like that. But the odds of Nintendo getting some sort of smaller studio, either out of Japan or the West at some point, you know, high. I think at some point they'll buy somebody. But it's not, they aren't the type of company like Sony and Microsoft that are looking for heavy consolidation. So odds of them getting someone huge, I would put it like 0, because I just don't think they're interested in it. Do they have the money for it? Sure, but I just don't think they have the interest. But buying someone, sure, I could see that happening at some point. And then Monkey with a channel member question, and then we got to wrap it up. Jumped in late with Baldur's Gate 3 saying they're not currently releasing on the Xbox because of issues with the Series S. Yeah, it's become a bit of an albatross, hasn't it? What kind of problems does this cause? I'm an Xbox owner and disappointed. Yeah, I think Microsoft's going to have to, at some point this gen, I mean, they might have to drop the mandate around Series S. You know, that was the one risk they ran when they launched a much more underpowered platform compared to Series X and PS5. You know, so many devs right now want to just target those as the main SKU because, sure, right now Microsoft probably has more Series S sold than X. Here's the problem. There's way more PS5s sold than either, and especially the Series S, because we know Series X and S combined are way below PS5. And even if S is the majority of those sales, right? Maybe if it's more than X, it still has a huge chunk of X in there too. So the problem is right now when people are looking at current gen specific games, they're looking at the platform with the most sales, which is PS5, and like by far. And Series X is very comparable to that. And then you have Series S, this thing that's like way below both of them. And combined, right? X and PS5 combined. So it's becoming a problem, right? It's becoming a problem. They're not the only ones to say this, by the way. There's been comments before from Remedy. Not that they're not going to ship on S, but they've flat out said in the past, Remedy, you know, who's making Alan Wake, they've said in the past that S has been a big problem for them. There's been other devs that have said it. So I think a lot of these companies are just going to have to learn to, when I say learn to deal with it, I know it's hard for devs, but if they're going to support Switch 2 as well, which I think a lot of third parties need to, Switch 2 is going to be even weaker than Series S. So Switch 2, it's going to sound weird. That might be a boon for Series S because publishers are probably going to want to support that platform somewhat, and they're going to have to get it running on that, and that's probably even weaker than a Series S. So that might actually help S's case, but it has become a bit of an issue right now. Yeah, it has. All right, guys, I got to bounce. Thank you for an awesome stream. We went for 2 hours, like actually 2 hours. Crazy. I try to keep this thing at like an hour and a half because I don't know how much it holds your guys' attention going for 2 hours hearing me ramble, but I love doing these streams, so hopefully you guys had fun. I always get a little worried once I go to like the 2 hours. I'm like, people are probably so bored of just hearing me talk at this point. So thanks, guys. Thank you for everyone that came into the chat. And Danger Man saying, I hope the Switch 2 is the closest to the Series S at 720p OLED. That would be cool. I still think it's going to be weaker than Series S, but I mean, hey, if they could get Series S performance docked, that would be amazing. Like I'd be very happy with that for Nintendo, but I just... we'll see. Maybe DLSS can get them comparable results to what Series S is doing. Maybe. It's not impossible, depending on DLSS. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Like the video if you haven't already. Helps the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. My channel's like super close to 5,000 subs. So like, get me over that 5,000 hump. I never do that, like ever. You guys never hear me push my YouTube channel. But we've been like just under 5K for like a long time. I've been at like 4.9 for like months. Let's get that over that 5K hump. If you're watching this stream and you've watched a bunch of my streams and you're still not subbed, just do it. Just get me over that 5K. I'm so close to it. So yeah, sub to the channel if you're not already. Like the video. Follow me on Twitter or X or whatever the freaking heck it's called. If you don't, that's where I'm most active. That's where most of my following is. And as always, everybody, thank you for all the support. Shout out to the channel members. You're all amazing. stay safe, play some games, and I will catch you all either here on YouTube next week or on Twitter here very, very, very soon. Have a good one, guys. Bye. Bye, bye, bye. Love you guys.